The FDA has officially announced that they will be banning artificial dyes in the food supply by the end of 2026. Man, that is coming up very quickly. Usually these things take a little bit to go into place, but the end of 2026, that's like less than 2 years away. And this includes red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, and green 3. And I watched this video, and they are saying that Americans are swimming in a chemical soup in their food supply. And this is absolutely correct. This is absolutely correct. This is a long time coming. These chemicals have been absolutely just running rampant through, not just children, but adults. Who knows all of the problems that these chemicals cause to our health. But this is the FDA announcing this today. Finally, we get some traction in the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. Very excited about this. I think that this has been a long time coming.
Today, the FDA is taking action to remove petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and from medications. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals. The scientific community has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, as I've seen in the hospital, and allergic reactions. For example, this Lancet study conducted a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study on food dyes and concluded that artificial colors in the diet, quote, result in increased hyperactivity. So why are we taking a gamble?
Well, I can answer that question. We are taking the gamble because of money, because these massive food companies are making tons of money on the margins whenever the food looks a certain way. Whenever Skittles or Fruit Loops have that bright yellow or blue or red color, it just looks better. So what? People are going to eat it. It might be kind of bad for people, but it increases our profit margins by, I don't know what, 1.5%, which, with these massive food companies like General Mills or, these other ones, that's a ton of money. So they lobby Congress, they lobby the FDA to allow them to essentially poison the American population. And the FDA is supposed to be the one that prevents that kind of thing, but then they give kickbacks and they give jobs to ex-FDA employees, and the cycle continues. And I'm glad at least this part of the cycle of government corruption is being checked. Hopefully this actually comes to fruition, because by the end of 2026, a lot can happen between now and the end of 2026, but a little more details on these food dyes that are going to be taken out of the food supply coming very soon. Kennedy plans to phase out 8 commonly used food dyes. The petroleum-based dyes are used in hundreds of thousands of items, including cereals and sports drinks. In his first attempt to significantly change the nation's food supply, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health secretary, will direct food manufacturers to phase out 8 petroleum-based food dyes that are found in hundreds of thousands of grocery store staples. The Department of Health and Human Services said on Monday the plan, expected to be described in detail at an event in Washington on Tuesday. So that's today. That's what you just heard there. Targets dyes used in cereals, sports drinks, and a host of other food. The department has not outlined a regulatory path to enforce the changes, but wants them to be made by the end of 2026. Health advocates have long criticized food dyes, citing a limited body of research. Notice that they throw in this little limited body of research, because this is something, of course, that the mainstream media and these big money interest, they don't like when these regulations come and actually regulate them, right? Because when these regulations, when this is pointed out, this is calling out them. This is affecting their own pocketbook. So, of course, they've got to throw a little shade, citing a limited body of research connecting them to hyperactivity and other neurobehavioral problems in children. The Food and Drug Administration, which regulates about 80% of the nation's food supply, banned red dye number 3 shortly before Trump took office after studies connected it with cancer in laboratory animals. That followed a 2023 California law that banned the dye. The 8 dyes Mr. Kennedy wants to phase out are widely used within the United States, but products made for the European markets, where companies are required to use warning labels if they add them, and Canadian markets already use natural color substitutes. The secretary is expected to announce the approval of additional natural dyes at Tuesday's event. Mr. Kennedy, long a champion of removing certain chemicals from the food supply, made food dyes an issue as soon as he was selected to head HHS, pointed out that in Canada, Fruit Loops gets its bright colors from blueberries and carrots instead of red number 40 and yellow number 5 and blue number 1 in the American version. So they make one version for Canada, one version for America. We get the toxic chemical concoction, the toxic chemical soup. Canadians over there, they get to eat natural food dyes. I mean, it's just fantastic. And these companies are in the United States. So they're poisoning their own people, okay? The change would have a sweeping impact on major food companies like General Mills, the Kraft Heinz Company, and PepsiCo, which have argued that there hasn't been enough science connecting ingredients with health outcomes. Well, do they? It's kind of this question right here. Do they want there to be enough science? No, they don't want there to be enough science. There will never be enough science. Why? Because these companies make billions off of this food. And when you're talking about these small little changes in these giant corporations, those small little changes cost billions of dollars sometimes. And that affects their bottom line. So now they have to redo all of these different foods that go out all over the United States. And that costs money, that costs time. And they don't want to do that. Martin Makary, the FDA Commissioner, said in an exclusive interview Tuesday that the time had come to shift the thinking on what constitutes risk in the food supply and what scientific evidence is required to regulate food ingredients. He said, quote, "My feeling is, why gamble with the health of our children?" he said. "We have some data points. We have some observational studies. We believe that these artificial food chemicals are implicated. My feeling is, why not err on the side of safety? Why say, let's just take the risk because the vibrance of the colors is so appealing, it's worth it?" The FDA has long maintained that it has reviewed and evaluated the effects of color additives on children's behaviors and believes that most children have no adverse effects from consuming them. Yeah, that is if you trust the FDA, if you trust these government institutions. I mean, these government institutions are just as corrupt as any other institution, okay? That part is 100% certain. These government institutions, I mean, this is why we have a large percentage of people doing their own research and trying to figure out what is healthy, what is not, because, I mean, they don't trust the government institutions. Because I think one of the best examples of this is the food pyramid, where it said eating all this grain was very healthy for you. And they had the food pyramid, and the grain was supposedly like the biggest part of the food pyramid. Well, I mean, it comes out that actually, eating a bunch of bread and all these other things is not really good for you. They just wanted you to eat all of that because that type of food was plentifully available. So they're not doing it because they are concerned for your health. They're doing it because this kind of greases the machine of the food economy. And this is why we have such a large percentage of people doing their own research, because they don't trust institutions like the FDA. Just like, we lost trust in the mainstream media, there are tons of people that have lost trust in the FDA a long time ago. So saying, oh, there's no proof that there are adverse effects from consuming these dyes is like saying anything else. It doesn't matter what you say because we don't trust you. I'm sorry. We don't trust you. But it goes on to say, changing food regulations can take a long time, requiring public comment, testimony from food manufacturers, and scientific examination. Dr. Makary described the agency's move to remove the dyes as a multi-step process. The first is asking food companies to remove the dyes voluntarily. Well, here's the issue with that. They're not, okay? They want to put as many obstacles and roadblocks between the final effect and now. They want to make this process as hard and convoluted as possible because they don't want to get to the actual result of removing the food dyes. So that's why they're putting all these roadblocks. Well, first we got to ask them to remove the dyes voluntarily. It's just like, no, I mean, why would they? Why would they do that? No, they're not going to just remove the dyes. That costs time and money. Well, quite honestly, they have a national standard. I have found they have been more than receptive to have a level playing field. On Monday, the International Food Additives Council, a trade group, echoed that a unified federal approach is essential for maintaining a safe and reliable food supply. It said in an emailed statement, the FDA is actively working to make changes to increase efficacy in their process. This underscores the importance of post-market reviews, and FDA's transparency to ensure consumer trust. Sarah Gallo, a senior vice president of product policy for Consumer Brands Association, a lobbying group for the food and beverage industry, has previously cautioned that policies based on ideology and not science could undermine trust in food safety and, quote, cause consumers, particularly those in vulnerable populations, to lose access to safe, nutrient-dense foods. Oh, that's just warms my heart. This Sarah, who is a vice president of product policy for a lobbying group for food and beverage industry. Yes. Whenever you see lobbying, what you need to see is they're just liars. Of course, they're lying. They're lobbying for certain companies to so that the companies actually have beneficial regulations that benefit them or that don't harm them. That's why these lobbying groups exist. They don't care about the safety and health or anything else of anybody. They care about their bottom line. Removing food dyes quickly took on momentum in March after a meeting in Washington, which Mr. Kennedy warned top executives from PepsiCo, Kellogg, General Mills, and other large companies that eliminating food dyes was a top priority. Later in the month, West Virginia, they were the first ones that actually took action on this. Banned foods containing most artificial dyes and 2 preservatives, citing their potential health risks. Then on April 6th, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton announced that his office had opened an investigation into Kellogg for marketing its products as healthy, despite containing petroleum-based artificial food colorings that he claimed had been linked to hyperactivity and other health problems. Vani Hari, a healthy food activist, I follow her actually. I follow her on Instagram with millions of social media followers who calls herself Food Babe, has long led a grassroots efforts to remove food dyes and other chemicals from the food supply and will speak at Tuesday's event. She counts among her early victories a campaign to get the artificial colors removed from boxed macaroni and cheese. In 2015, Kraft said it would change its recipe and within a year replaced yellow number 5 and yellow number 6 with paprika, annatto, turmeric, the same coloring ingredients the company used in products sold in the European Union. Well, good for you, Kraft. I'm not one to really pat the back of a major food conglomerate, but hey, at least you responded to this and did the right thing. Ms. Hari was part of a group that also pressed Kellogg in 2024 to remove dyes from its cereal, gathering thousands of signatures on a petition and protesting in front of the company's Michigan headquarters. The uproar came after the company and others pledged in 2015 to eliminate artificial ingredients by 2018. That promise, which wasn't fulfilled, is at the heart of the Texas investigation. Okay. So they made a promise. Imagine a corporation making a promise and not fulfilling that promise. It's wild. It's wild to think about. I could never imagine a corporation, a company, making a promise and not fulfilling it. It just doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Ms. Hari said that disappointments like that have fueled support for President Trump and the MAHA movement. She said, quote, we never had a president ever talk about these issues in this way. You are watching an entire population who largely never knew about these issues hear about them for the first time. I agree. I come from a family where I have family members who are very into natural health, and I grew up kind of around this whole healthy food movement myself. So this is something that is very near and dear to me. And I remember when I was kind of younger, I didn't really see the point in it. I was like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why can't I just have, cake for dinner, But then as you grow up, you realize, actually you walk through the grocery aisles and you see all these bold colors, and you see all, like the cereal and candy and all these other things. And you kind of think to yourself, like, why? Because all of these food companies have these very highly paid marketing agencies that work for them. And they create all these different logos and brands and for a specific reason, to appeal to the psyche. And that's true for the color of the food itself, not just for the boxes and everything. And they do that because it causes people to buy. It makes it look more appealing. It causes people to buy it. And it kind of tricks the brain into making it look good, like it's good food. And, there's nothing wrong with dyeing something as long as it's not affecting someone's health. And that's what's in question here. The Center for Science and Public Interest, a nonprofit consumer advocacy group, applauded the move, but its president, Dr. Peter Lurie, warned in a statement that recent FDA staff cuts ordered by DOJ and Mr. Kennedy could hamper efforts to keep the food supply safe. It will be harder now for FDA to police other food additives, inspect factories, or perform just about any function than it was 4 months ago. So they're saying that these DOJ cuts could affect this or whatever. I mean, I'm all for the FDA, but I'm for the FDA doing its job and not being corrupt. And I think a lot of these agencies are extremely corrupt, and they're rotating doors or revolving doors for these bureaucrats to come in. And then when they come out, they get some high-paying consulting job that is connected with the very company that they were regulating while they were in these government agencies. So good on RFK Jr. for making this a priority. I think this is very important. I think this is of utmost importance to the country because what you eat definitely affects your quality of life. And a lot of people, they just kind of don't they don't pay attention much to what they eat. They eat something and it tastes good, and so they go back to that thing. They eat it. It tastes good. It's kind of this continuous loop. Never once thinking that maybe this thing that I'm eating is actually causing my body to be sick, is giving me problems that are that get exponentially worse every time I eat some of these different chemicals that aren't natural. So I'm glad to see that this is going into effect. I hope it really gets to where it needs to go. But what do you guys think? Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. But until then, I will see you on the next one.